Yeah, you sound like, ooh.
You.
That's really disconcerting. It's not the good kind of trippy.
Welcome to the Ignorance is No Excuse podcast with our new guest. Hi, Mark Peterson. How you doing?
Doing well. How are you, sir?
Wonderful.
Excellent.
Can we get a recap of what happened to you? Because I know there was a story. You have a backstory, and I think it's actually kind of shocking.
Oh, which one?
Yeah, I mean, where do we start, right?
At the beginning.
Well, probably the thing that you're probably thinking about mostly is my arrest in 2016. I was facing a maximum of 64 years in Colorado State Prison.
Yikes. Whoa.
For weed?
Yes, for providing cannabis freely to 5 chronically and terminally ill patients. Most of them were children. Freely.
It's like I jumped backwards into a time capsule of some sort, you know?
Right?
I
That's
thought
fine.
particularly. Hi there, Jim.
What's going on?
So was it?
And I'm sorry for getting on at 7:01, but for me, 1 minute late is not late. That's early. Can't help. I used to be the late Jim Miller till Cheryl died, and then it was inappropriate. So, welcome. Yeah, that's
So now you're the better late than never.
Yeah.
That's the Jim Miller minute.
yeah, right there you
There
go.
you go. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you got a baker's dozen, you got a Jim Miller minute,
Mark, that's Kathy sitting back there behind Jim. You can like half see her.
Hi,
She's
Kathy.
I'm Jim's better
2/3. Yes,
better
that's-
2/3.
Okay.
Now, I know sometimes couples don't like it when I say that the guy part of the couple doesn't, but it comes it's not a bestowment, the better 2/3. It needs to be maintained, So my shortcomings, if they slip out into the rest of the world and what I'm doing, that's not good. So I'm usually on time, like 01 is on time. I get to appointments. I get to forget things and be reminded. That's important, but it's also like, I'm sorry, is my coffee right here? My better 2/3, could you get that for me? See, that's how it works. Well, actually, I wouldn't have done that if she hadn't offered to make coffee in the first place.
Of course you wouldn't.
I have a cup in the microwave.
Yeah, I got
Right
it
there.
down already.
Oh, well.
Where is everybody located?
New
Jersey.
Jersey.
New Jersey.
I know you're in New Jersey. Is everyone else in New Jersey? Or?
We all are.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much a state effort in a state that needs a good group effort,
Mm.
And the long and short of it, though, is for me, being 25 minutes from Trenton comes in handy because I seem to have to go there too often. And I don't know. It's all about I am one-track minded, focused, laser on the fact that when a bill isn't allowed to be heard for 5 years, a medical cannabis home grow bill, not allowed to be heard in committee for 5 years, held and checked by one person, something's wrong. That needs to be the main focal point. And still, people think it's about getting support. Getting support for a bill that won't get a hearing is like basically worthless. I mean, it's good for later on when it will get a hearing. But it undermines my point that anybody that has an opinion on the bill before having an informational hearing to glean pertinent, credible information from there, it's not a well-founded opinion yet. And I don't care to have it until it's well-founded, meaning I don't want to talk about what's in the bill. I want to talk about getting it to a hearing when I talk to people. Here, I'll talk about anything you want, don't work. What's up?
I've been writing legislation for a while now. As a matter of fact, I don't believe you all can do a direct initiative there in New Jersey, can you? You can't do initiative at all there, I don't believe.
No.
There's only 23 states that can do an initiative in the whole nation. There's only 14 that can do a direct initiative. And a direct initiative is the only real way to pass any meaningful legislation, unfortunately. That's what this.
We voted that down, by the way, maybe 14, 16 years ago, something. We had on the ballot, do you want initiatives in referendum? And we voted against having the ability to do that. That blew me away. I don't know what kind of state I was living in then.
Well,
So-
politicians are absolutely against initiative. As a matter of fact, Republicans are currently fighting in like 5 states that have a direct initiative right now, trying to get it basically nullified by forcing the number of signatures to a point that no one can gather them in time. And,
do you think that has a chance of happening? Is it an uphill battle for them, or are they going to coast in and get it done, in your opinion?
They've been making progress in some states already. They've made progress, I believe, in Colorado and I believe Arizona, and they've been quite feverish in their efforts here in Missouri as well. And it would be really bad because it's like the last way that we can actually pass anything that we want. You know, basically, I write initiatives for complete legalization. My initiative is complete legalization. It's the only way I can see that it's not going to constantly be a struggle, that there's not going to constantly be arrests. We have to bury this thing. We have
that is the end goal. I mean, you know, because that goal does, I never want to say ends it, because I learned my freaking lesson about thinking things got ended ever. But, you know, it'll nail it into place where somebody has to pry it loose. And that's, you know, legalization. That's to weed, you know, get it to that state.
Well, there is no doubt about the fact that the Republicans want to repeal all cannabis legislation across the country. That's their goal, and they're fighting very hard to achieve that goal.
Do they also want to get rid of the initiative and referendum, or make it harder to initiate it?
Yes.
Well, how many?
By increasing the number of signatures required.
What percent signatures of voters in Missouri do you need to get one on the ballot?
Honestly, I don't really recall right now. I'm thinking it's somewhere in the neighborhood of what is it, 170,000, I think, something of that nature. Something.
So 20 to 25% seems to be what I've heard, but you know, that's pretty tough to reach sometimes too.
Well,
it doesn't need to be made tougher.
And what they did with me is I have been, ever since my first initiative was in 2012 that I filed, and that was the cannabis initiative. I was blackmailed off my own board. Yeah,
I feel a crosswind here.
Our primary sponsor in 2012, he did not approve of medical cannabis at all. He didn't. He just wanted to see it passed for recreational purposes, so he could open a sling of dispensaries across the state.
What a dick!
What they've done. That is so.
Oh. I mean, I don't care about the patient. I've never heard of such a thing, to actually do that openly and take credit for it somehow, you know? Like to see a one-armed person, one-legged person kick his ass.
It's absolutely insane. I have spoken to so many dispensary owners in multiple states about how in real legalization, how they would make more money. It would be more available. Just because people have their home grows doesn't mean people aren't going to shop at dispensaries. In fact, it's going to be far, far more prevalent if they were to back it. But honestly, the dispensaries fought my bill. Well,
yeah, that's not as much of a surprise though.
Keith Straub, the head of the guy who founded Normal, he came to our state, and that's one of the things he talked about as he made the trip across the state, how Normal never supported, get this, Normal never supported children being able to have access to cannabis. He knew full well that I worked with children. He also said that Normal supported a strong DUI law. And I found that particularly interesting coming from the person who actually found it normal. Now,
A DUI for cannabis?
yes.
Yeah, well,
I understand.
How could that be quantified?
I understand. I sat, was it 15 years ago? I sat on the floor, cross-legged on the floor in a circle with Keith Straub sitting right next to me as he bummed joint after joint from me. That's the only way I could get him to listen to me, telling him stories about the medical cannabis patients who benefited from it. And at the end of it, when he downed my last joint, he said, he just put his hand out like this in front of me. He goes, "There's no medical to cannabis. People just want to get high." And he got up and left.
Huh.
So,
See, I find that's kind of odd for me to put this in place because, on the other hand, he was instrumental in making sure that patients from all over the country, especially with MS, got to Washington for Cheryl's memorial at the Supreme Court and press conference that Barney Frank led, and other stuff going on. So I'm not saying, I don't doubt what you're saying because I've been surprised a lot. And, I'm just, but, fair disclosure, I had the opposite experience. On the other hand, I keep my eyes wide open and I understand that people do nice things, especially when it benefits them.
exactly.
I'm just saying I understand that principle and I apply it to everybody. And the only thing benefiting you is helping the people you want to help. So you kind of get to the top of my list for credibility, like, when I have no other way to determine it. So just as honest as I can be about it. And I really appreciate you saying that, though, because I hate when I'm missing something. I really do.
I've been very disappointed, not only with Normal, also with ASA, hugely against MPP. The things I've seen, the dirty things, the terrible things I have seen over the last 20 years in cannabis, it's.
I'll go back 10 before that, even myself.
Well,
especially then. There's a little elbowing going on, I mean, the fact that MPP got their start by kind of ferreting away Normal's list. Patient, or their membership, but and then siphoning off. Well, I mean, they're not mutually exclusive. One can belong to two organizations normally. Wow, no pun intended. But I had a problem with the MPP myself to the point where I went to the Drug Policy Alliance's a national conference excuse me, in the Meadowlands, New Jersey, with 200 copies of the problem I had with MPP. And it was personal because it had to do with them convincing Barney Frank to delay something that he was doing because they wanted a patient caravan to come across the country, 2 different buses, and I'm like, are you kidding me? That is nothing but potential peril for the patient. I mean, Rob Campia at that time couldn't fathom what it would be like for a patient to all the things that could go wrong. And as it is, Cheryl died during that wait and never got to take part in what Barney Frank had planned, which didn't come to fruition anyway. So anyway, I and a couple other things I went to hand it out. And the short story is that when I saw Rob registering, and I had just I was registering myself, and when I went by him, I handed him a copy of what I was handing out, and I said, "Here's what I'm going to start handing out to everybody I can as soon as I'm done registering." And then, man, he came hustling over in the middle of me registering, said, "We got to talk." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know. That's my whole point. And I'll talk to you when I'm done registering." And he had the balls to say, "Well, how long is that going to take?" And all I could say is probably about, less time than it took you. I don't know, you know. But anyway, yeah, he had me. We talked in the lobby, and the motel had a second floor, 3/4 of the way around it, where you could lean on a wall and look down into this really large lobby. You know, a well done one too. And there we were sitting there talking, and it was like an audience gathered, like, because they all knew what was going on anyway. They didn't know I was about to hand stuff out. I only handed it to a couple of people, and they were like, holy crap, you know. And but anyway, that's what it took to get him to talk to me seriously. And when you're holding cards like that, they really do, somebody does take you seriously finally. It was like an intervention between me and him. And he did give me credit. He said, hey, listen, you know, where'd you come up with the idea for being Mailman Jim? You know, you go into a congressman's office and say, like, talk to you about medical marijuana or whatever. And they say, are you a constituent? I go, hell no, I'm not even from the same side of the Mississippi as you. But let me whip this out. And then nod to Blazing Saddles. I'd have it folded in my pocket. And I'd take out the letter and go, this is a letter from, and I'd say who and where. And it begins like this. I would appreciate it that when Jim Miller hand delivers this to your office, and then I go, that's me, if you would have somebody on staff talk to him about my concerns, because he can reflect them properly. I got in every time. Mailman Jim I never got turned away. And I had to take somebody with me to Washington. It was about veterans and that the FDA and everything being in the way of studies for post-traumatic stress and all that. Yeah, it was that. I was willing to be their exclamation point and deliver with attitude. So we did that. And me and another guy got to 39 offices one day. And for me, when they say, well, have someone be with you, I say, if you can't, that's fine, because I don't think I can reach all the offices I got today anyway. It was like really weird, but I digress. This is not about me today, Mark. We want to know what you're doing, what you're up to.
What am I doing? Well,
we got a sign. It's when I'm talking too much, and I didn't hear that, but I could feel it coming. Thought I heard a throat clear. I'm serious.
my volcano's in the other room, unfortunately.
Anyway, yeah, it's like there's got to be a lot more going on that you can tell us about. I'm already kind of like as informed as I ever get. I mean, this is what I love about having somebody on. I want to learn something, you know, and that I get to ask questions in real time. And, you know, that's all too infrequent these days, you know. So.
Well, I'd be more than happy to tell you anything. My life's an open book. Unfortunately, I don't know if you saw that. I think, Sue, I think you saw it. Esquire sought me out here this past March, and did a story on me for them. Very, they got very in depth, almost kind of scary in depth. That's
Really?
the first interview I've done for basically a non-cannabis magazine.
Well, I guess how long ago was that? I want to access that.
It was in March, and I can provide you all with the link to it, the story and all. But
please do.
Yes.
Yeah.
They made a big. The reporter she's out of California. She flew in to do the interview, and the story was originally going to be about the lead plant that originally made me sick, and after we got to talking, she said, "No, I just want to do a story about you." And I said, "Okay, all right." So she asked me lots of questions and questioned everything that I said and verified everything I said too. That was the scary part. But
yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, especially if you've had any bad experiences with scary parts of stuff in the past, you know, I can see it doing that, you know. But that's like really an amazing opportunity in a non-cannabis magazine.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean that's like I don't know, it just really goes to credibility in some people's minds, whether or not it's deserved or not, you know. I know.
It's unfortunate. I've written for several just a few different articles for different magazines. For a short time, I was the editor of the Medical Cannabis Journal magazine, which I was really hoping we could get out there, but unfortunately, we had to fold after about 4 issues. But
Well, not for lack of trying, though. I see that. What I appreciate is when people try, they take the steps, they find their edge of the envelope if it's there to be found. They don't just say, "Well, it probably wouldn't work." That's how you find out if it would work, and it's a learning experience. That's valuable. I mean,
well, I was with the journal. I was falling back on a lot of my experience with Patients Out of Time, because I was a spokesperson for Patients Out of Time for a number of years, and
how long were you involved with Patients at a Time? I know you were, but
a number of years. I think I first got involved. Well, the a person became a good friend of mine, Irvin Dargan of North Carolina. He kind of brought me into Patients Out of Time because he was already doing video work for them. And I came in, kind of helped assisting with some of the camera work, but almost immediately I started interviewing their faculty, and which I thought was a gold mine. I did far more for me than actually attending the conferences of the actual the talks, but the being able to talk to different people, guys like Raphael Meshulam, geez,
yeah,
just amazing stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, I got to talk with Dr. Raphael Meshulam at Fish Pond Plantation there.
There you go.
Yeah, after their 2005 conference in well, not that far from there in Virginia, and when you're standing out smoking a joint with Bob Melamede, and and Raphael Meshulam comes walking over, and we're outside with the what do you call it, tiki sort of flaming things. Yeah, it was really it was done period.
You got it. Tiki.
Yeah, right. It was done in period stuff where they had barbecue stuff that was of that period. They had people with clothes on playing a couple of instruments of that period. It was just so cool.
Oh yeah.
And then so I'm standing, Bob. It was a nice field there, and we were just not real close to anybody else. Maybe 15 feet away, somebody else, and we were spread out, not at a big thing. It was just so much fun. I see him wandering over, and I'm, oh, this is so cool. And when he comes up and says, "May I join in your conversation?" Man, I felt like I was in a movie scene or something. This is the man. May I join in your conversation? And then, and I knew the answer, but I felt like, you always offer, So Bob hands me the joint, and we're saying hi, and I go, "Look, I know the answer, but are you gonna have some?" "Oh no!" It was. I don't often say a guy was really cute, but he was so cute when he did that. It was just so endearing, And then he told us about how they were going to investigate how cannabis consumption within an hour or something of a stroke could really mitigate the damage that the stroke would do, and that they could use head trauma as the model because it mimicked it, and that they were going to have vaporizers available in like 50 ambulances in Israel, because also for any kind of certain accidents that happen, car accidents or whatever, and I just found it fascinating having this inside information from him. And then he wandered away, but really the bus that brought us back from Fish Pond to the motel, because no way was I going to be driving anywhere around that part of the country like that. The bus is like a school bus, and or no, maybe it was a regular bus. I can't remember. I seem to remember a good vision of other people. Anyway, the people on that bus were the people you're talking about. I'm like, oh my God, the passenger list of the bus, And Brownie Mary, I forget. I get her into somebody. She was, oh my God, the lights went out for a second, a mechanical function, and one person went, "Oh heavens," or something like that. Her, But then I looked at everybody. There was what's his name from G and GW Pharmaceuticals. I forget his name now. He was there. I mean, these people I didn't necessarily like, but a whole bunch on the bus, and Patients at a Time offered that.
Yeah.
They had me as an advisor at Cheryl's Memorial in 2003.
Yeah, see, that's before I really got involved. 2006 was whenever I really started doing things. That's because I was part of a cross country thing to bring attention to medical cannabis. It was called Journey for Justice 7.
How'd that go? I hadn't heard about that.
Yeah, we traveled from Charleston, South Carolina to San Francisco. I was on-road coordinator for 3 guys on bicycles. And
wow.
It was crazy, living out of a tent for 4.5 months and see
wow,
the whole country.
That's huge. Wow.
Yeah, saw the whole country at 17 miles an hour. It was crazy. I was the oldest guy, so I was the one who always talked to all the cops. So
yeah, how'd you like that? I mean, there's a lot of different states in between your destination and you.
They were scared of us. They actually were. They followed us. They literally relayed from county to county that we were on our way. So we had basically a distant escort throughout much of the country.
I can imagine that. When I walked across the state in '93 pushing Cheryl's wheelchair because nobody really gave a shit. 58 miles in 25 hours, and I got the same thing from the police. They did not know what to make of me.
Yeah.
They really didn't. One, I had a talk like he was through his passenger door on the road in the middle of the night in the farmland going across the state. He wanted to know if I was all right. I'm thinking, as long as I keep the ear with this stinky half joint over it, away from your side of the window,
There you go.
And, but they'd stop and the guy gave me glow sticks and they'd want to know if anybody was giving me trouble, but I got no trouble at all, And then we did it again the next 2 years later with Cheryl in the back of the support van. And, I would check in every 2.5 miles when one cop had some attitude, like, what's going on and all that, And I opened up the side door of the van and said, you want to take the responsibility? And there was a woman and nurses stuff taking care of Cheryl in the back of the van. And you could tell she was a patient, It was really fun how she could shut people up by her very presence, like an Avenger.
At some of the earlier, I think it was one of the earlier journeys, it was Elvie. I think it was Elvie. That she went up to a cop because there was always cops at these things, and went up to the cop and said, officer, you got to help me. There's people trying to take my medicine. And she was holding a joint in her, smoking a joint at the
I can picture her doing that. Yeah.
Oh, and the cop was turning away from her. She said, please leave me alone.
Get away. I'm sorry. I'm busy. Well, Irv liked to tell about how in an airport, a guy walked a dog around, and he went over to the officer and said, I'm sorry, is this a bomb sniffing dog or a drug sniffing dog? He goes, he's a drug sniffing dog. Well, he missed the marijuana I have in my suitcase, and brought the dog back. Now that cost him some time. And in the Silver Tour that Robert Platshorn had, older people bus riding to,
I interviewed him on camera years ago.
Yeah, Irv missed most of that because of the same thing. I mean, it was legal, but they didn't accept what he had and couldn't get in touch with the right people. You'd think he had to literally get out of jail free card. Shouldn't they have given him a get out of jail free card with the Monopoly one, like as a logo or something, an official? I mean, they owed him that. How many people were there? I mean, there's 3 now, I think.
What's that? 3 what?
3 legal patients left.
We only have 2 left. And actually, they're not patients anymore. LV and Irv aren't getting cannabis from the federal government anymore.
So George is gone.
I was just going to say that. Didn't LV get, government issued?
I was with George just prior to him.
Yeah,
passing.
I didn't know he passed.
George was like a mentor to me. He was really important to me.
Yeah, he affected a lot of people that way. He did, yeah.
But when I was in the process of moving back to Missouri, I made it a point. I flew into they told me that he was going to be passing, and so when I flew into St. Louis, I jumped on a little puddle jumper and flew into Iowa so that I could sit with him and basically just turned the cameras on and just sat and we just talked. And he was holding on for me. He was holding on for me. He literally was. And they had set up a chair right next to his bed so that I'd have a place to sit and talk with him. We just sat for hours and talked.
That's kind of the coolest closure sort of thing I'd ever heard, maybe, I mean, that would, that's like a movie scene, man. I'm happy for you that you had that. I'm happy for you. I mean, you always have that sad emotion for something like that. And I'm keeping that aside, but I'm happy that you got to do that. I mean, missing somebody's passing like my own mom by about 30 seconds, that stays with you.
Yeah.
But we had closure before that. So, I mean, we really did, So, man, I'm sorry to hear about George, but
you mentioned Raphael. Raphael, when I met him, I was actually taking him to where he was going to be speaking at one of the conferences, and we were walking along down the hallway, and I'm going through my head thinking, I have got to think of something intelligent to say to this guy, the guy who isolated THC in 64. I need to come up with something intelligent to say to this man. The only thing I could think of was how much he looked like my dad. And when I shared that with him, he just cackled.
Well, that was a perfect thing to say then, really, I mean, he as much as people want to ask him stuff, I imagine he gets a lot of repetitive questions are very similar, and it's nice, when somebody can go, I haven't heard that one yet. It's pretty cool. I was talking to Bruce Springsteen's first drummer, Vinny Lopez, one time at a function. And I asked him what it was like to be a caddy at Pebble Beach, because he was a golfer too. And he caddied at Pebble Beach and he was freaking delighted. Finally, that was one of the coolest thing I ever, and he just went on and on. I was helping carry his stuff for him. He was playing real quick with a friend at a thing in Asbury Park. I was carrying it back to a van, and I thought, hey, well, I'm Springsteen's drummer's roadie, carrying his stuff back. But anyway.
That's so cool.
But it is nice when you count to somebody, when you find something more real than what the same old question somebody must be getting.
My former business partner, Regina Nelson, she actually spoke over, I can't remember where it was in Europe, but at a conference over there, and Raphael was there. She actually got to spend 3 hours with Raphael when the off time, and they sat and did nothing but talked. And she got to share with him about some of the babies that I'd worked with and all, and how I stopped seizure disorder. I stopped a full-blown seizure in 3 minutes with cannabis oil. And she said he just smiled, and he said, back in I think he said 1990, he said that he wanted to explore cannabis in treating seizure disorder in children, pediatric seizures. And but he said there wasn't any money in it, so he wasn't able to explore that.
That's a sad truth, though, isn't it?
We have as a member of the network that I'm in, the Cannabis Nurses Network, we have one of Raphael's assistants as a member.
Oh, awesome.
And she lives in Israel, so she she'll pop on when we have a meeting, like, it's 3:00 in the morning over there, but she's got some interesting stories, and even about like what's going on today, you know.
I think it's just all history. It's just really important history. I recall Raphael telling the story about how he would have to go out and they would throw the bags of cannabis over the top of the fence to him and stuff. So, crazy stuff, you know. But,
Yeah, I tell you.
Yeah, and there's a story about him being on. He took the bus and he had, I don't know how much hashish on him. He was taking to his lab. I read that story and I heard that story too. But yeah, interesting man, really interesting.
oh gosh, yes.
Genius.
I really regret. That's one of my biggest regrets is that I didn't have the opportunity, because I interviewed a number of members of the faculty during that particular event, and I didn't get to interview Raphael, and I could have.
Yeah.
And I really wish I would have. It just been awesome.
Yeah, that'd have been a gold mine, you know.
Yeah.
We'll have
I
to
don't
do
want to
some.
rub it in though, you know.
We'll have to channel him into you.
Yeah, well, you know, there's more than a couple of times I can look back over the paths that I have crossed, almost Forrest Gump like, as I'm sure it was with you as well. You know, you just can't believe the people who you end up having time with them. But, you know, just to have had something on to record the conversations I had with some people, you know, and but in your case, and as I would have it now, the chance to interview somebody like that, you know, and so I mean, but along those lines, you know, there are people, well, like us. I find it a privilege having you with us here tonight. This is
Well, it's definitely a privilege to be here talking with you all. This is
that's you know the fact of the matter, and you know, it's like, but that we get to walk amongst the giants ourselves, you know, and that has something, you know. I mean, just coming down on the 9th floor to the 5th floor on an elevator with Lester Grinspoon and his wife some years ago. But the reason they were on the 9th floor, because, well, they're the Grinspoons, you know, and that was the top floor. But there was an elevator at a 3 you didn't go in from the 5th floor or below, because if you went in, it would go up and open it, you know, and then all the way to the top. And I don't know why it would do that. And as soon as I did that with Cheryl, I was like, oh, well, we're not in a hurry, you know. And we get up and then they come walking in.
It was a private elevator then?
Yeah. And so basically we were just like in the elevator together, and Cheryl was having a muffin that Elvie gave us, each of us a muffin, not from her government sanctioned medicine, but she had some good muffins. And Cheryl was like chewing still, so she couldn't answer, but like Lester just looked down and I went, is that a space muffin? And she kind of smirked, like, yep, you know, and it was just like a wonderful, because it stopped at every floor on the way down, whether there was somebody there or not. And there generally wasn't, because everybody else knew enough not to get on that elevator unless it was coming down already, you know. So, but anyway, it was just crossing paths like that, you know.
Oh man.
You know, and you know, not for nothing, but Cheryl had that experience on elevators in Washington, because we always rode the congressional elevator. They would have it at least in 2 of the buildings right by everybody else's elevator. Congress only, you know, very, very clear. There's nobody guarding it. You push the button, the door opens. Plus, Cheryl's leaned back a little bit in the chair, and it was a little longer. So we would go in, but the idea, I can't take credit for it. It just happened. It stopped at another floor, and a congressman got in and ever so politely said to Cheryl, I'm sorry, maybe you didn't know, but this is a congressional elevator. And Cheryl went, yeah, we're trying to meet congressmen. Who are you? It's like, sucker, you know? So anyway, and then when we got down, we were actually a little early, so we went up and down, and it happened multiple times. It would be some version of that, you know. It was like, what a great way to capture a few minutes. I mean, really buttonhole. You had to be quick, though, you know.
Hey, Jim, when I met LV, she had her big tin of joints, pre-rolled, ground up. They ground up the stems, they ground up the seeds, they ground it all up. It's the worst joint you ever smoked in your life. And she smoked one with me, and it was probably one of the worst joints I ever smoked in my life.
Yeah.
She couldn't wait for us to give her some really good weed to smoke.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's that.
Irv saved.
George was the opposite. George, he came up and stayed with us up in Colorado, and he smoked some of our decent quality cannabis with us and all, but he still said he preferred that crappy stuff he got from the federal government. Still, he said it worked for me. You know, that was one. I think that spoke a lot, though, really, you know, to cannabis. The fact that something they could do what they did to the cannabis. I mean, literally, they would cut the tops off. They would cut the tops off. They didn't get the tops. They got ground up leaf and ground up stem and seeds.
And Irv saved his seeds and stems for 2 years, and it filled a tin. I mean, it looked like kindling for something.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Yeah, when I interviewed George on camera, he opened a tin that he had just gotten like 3 days before. He took the seal off, the wax and all the stuff, opened it up and showed the joints. And he pulled one of them out and broke it over the lid so I could see what was inside, you know. And it's just total crap. I mean, it really was. But the interesting thing about it, I actually have a couple of his tins in the other room, and I have a tin from him. I got a tin from Barb Douglas, and the one from Barb, I carried it all over the country with me and showed it to people. But the one I got from George had actually signed it, and he had coated it with lacquer, so only certain people get to see that one. But
that's some good collector items there, man. You got to hang on to them.
Oh, I've got 2 or 3 more in there that George's daughter had given me after he passed. But I have no desire to really share any of them, just because they mean something more special to me than just a collector's item.
Sure.
You know? But the interesting thing about that tin he got 3 days before, it was marked. Oh, you know, they right after they pack those things, they freeze dry them. They go in the freeze. They freeze dry. That one was dated like 8 years before.
Oh.
It was very old. You know, when they sent it to them deliberately. And understand that they're where they grew it there in Mississippi, they were growing it every year, but the patients didn't get the fresh stuff. The patients got the old stuff.
Yeah, well, the fact that every time there was any move to grow somewhere other than Oxford, Mississippi, Massachusetts somewhere made a pretty good play for it. It got struck down like it wasn't necessary.
Right.
And yet, of course, the DEA would say we're not going to release that for study because it would jeopardize the supply for more legitimate studies than the medical cannabis studies. You know, I applied. There's something that was called the CRISP files. It's an acronym, CRISP files, and it was that old attached to itself computer paper that was like volumes that were about like that of all the primary, secondary, and tertiary studies that they did grant study material to. I couldn't read through it. I've never studied the mating habits of the sperm whale. They got cannabis for that. That one sticks in my mind. There are just so many, but wow. And you know, oh no, for MS, no, we don't have enough. We got to see how a sperm whale's doing.
Oh yeah.
I used to think that would be some sort of damaging evidence and damning. It didn't matter. Nobody gives a shit, you know?
Well, the thing that is just so ridiculous is the fact that, they kept going back, well, it's a Schedule 1, and we can't study it.
Yeah.
The purpose behind Schedule 1 is for study. And every university, every university that does hospital research or does medical research has a Schedule 1 license. It's ridiculous.
Well,
It's just the things that they would say to take and say, and they were constantly studying. The pharmaceutical industry has been studying cannabis for decades.
yeah.
They had no excuse other than the fact of just plain out and out graft, as far as I'm concerned.
Mark, what's your opinion about the the Schedule 3 topic?
The Schedule 2. It's another hoax. It's another Trump hoax in every way, shape, and form. Schedule 3, again, Trump says we're moving to Schedule 3 so they can study it, which is total bullshit. Excuse my language, but it is. It was total bullshit because it's like I said, under Schedule 1, it just requires a Schedule 1 license, which again, every university hospital had Schedule 1 licenses because they studied more than just cannabis as a Schedule 1. So it didn't make sense. But as a Schedule 3, the whole goal is to make money off of cannabis. Is so that
and of course we know who benefits from this. It's the accountants, the lawyers, whoever else wants to write off their taxes and what have you. But I saw someone made this comment to me. I actually wrote it down because I thought, wow, that was such a dopey comment, and yet it was like really good. I was trying to explain, what this all means, this Schedule 3 thing, and what have you. And he finally said to me, so has my confusion about all of this been just convenient? And I said, yeah, exactly. That's it in a nutshell. It's just keep everyone confused. Everybody is doing the hip hip hooray. We're moving to Schedule 3 and whatnot. They don't understand. I don't see them understanding, and they could if they would just read, but they don't understand the whole premise of what's going on right now.
And the thing that boggles my mind is the fact that, recreational remains a Schedule 1, but medical is Schedule 3. It is
the medical.
the same.
Schedule 3 is the FDA approved shit. It's not what we're thinking about,
But the point is both plants are the same plant.
Well, yeah, we know that.
We know that, but the
And they know
government
that
is
too.
getting away with a lie, really. I'm sure not first.
It goes back to all the entangled language around cannabis overall, how they have tried to take and say that marijuana isn't cannabis and hemp is not marijuana and all this nonsense. Gee whiz, they don't understand that hemp is a sativa. Jeez, it doesn't make sense. It's crazy, but
That's government.
It's basically building on ignorance is what it really comes down to. They don't want people to understand the truth. They want to, just like you said, it's about confusion in many, many ways. But as a Schedule 3, it means that the pharmaceutical industry's got a shoe in. They will be able to work with it and make products from it. And they say, oh, wow, it'll be all fully available. No, it won't. You're going to have a prescription from a, quote, legitimate doctor, more than likely. And every dispensary that provides medical cannabis is going to have a pharmacist on staff.
But if you really look into this whole thing to address it correctly, there's there's that single convention compliance, and that's under Article 23, I believe. Do I have that right? I think. And that's where the DEA will be buying the plants and then selling back. So it's a clusterfuck, pardon my lingo, but that's what I see.
Exactly.
I find
it's
cluster
problem-
shock works as well too. Cluster shock.
I'm from Bergen
Yes.
County.
I know. I got to sneak up on people though.
That's two aquatic things we've heard. First, the sperm whales.
Yeah.
I didn't hear all of what you said. What?
The second aquatic reference. The first one about the sperm whales, and then this comment.
Yeah, I couldn't hear
Comment that
him.
the DEA is
Oh.
going to be your drug dealer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's what it boils down to.
Well, when you insert a middleman, you make more profit, which means it's going to be more expensive. That's why I was down on the federal government when Biden announced the thing that Candler was, say her name wrong, was pushing was the MORE Act. Recall that, the MORE
Yes.
Act.
Yes.
And I wrote a couple articles about that, about why that was so wrong, and because that would require federal oversight, also a federal excise tax, and the excise tax would be on top of the state tax and on top of the other taxes that were openly put on cannabis in some states as well, which is basically going to price cannabis beyond most average people. You know, I mean,
Mark,
what, just like cannabis oil, how in the world can most patients who require it, who don't probably are on Social Security, are going to be able to afford $500 to $1,000 a month? Seriously.
Yeah. You know, Mark, you as a cultivator, you know, and you know, we've got to watch this transition, I guess, because we don't really have a choice. Well, we have a choice, but a lot of people don't like to go for choice. But how would you feel about, like, the DEA would want access to your, you know, your facility, your grow, what have you? Like, how would you feel about that? Like, I would feel invaded. I would feel like, no, this is where we stop.
Absolutely. It's, you know, we're already being forced to have to jump through hoops already. You know, I mean, one of the things that used to irk me so bad when I was living in Colorado was the fact that every time you would go to a dispensary, they were required by law to shovel all this propaganda on you. And they would even insert propaganda into the bags, making statements like, oh, keep this away from it. To be dangerous for children to have access to this, dangerous for pregnant moms to have access to use cannabis, all these different scare tactics that they would use. Every last one of them was a lie. Every last one. I've worked with children as young as 8 months. Give me a break. You know, cannabis is not a dangerous, horrible drug the way that is. I'm speaking to the choir. Sorry. But
Preach.
Preach.
I would just, you know, I
I
think a general reminder to people that, you know, I mean, when you're talking about cannabis as a drug, you know, I see all the commercials for drugs on TV, and I'm really tired about the whimsical ways they can say nausea, diarrhea, and vomiting, you know, in every one. And there's one that says
may cause
nausea. No, one says nausea and vomiting, and then goes another 15, 18 seconds on other stuff and slips in diarrhea at the end. Like they wanted to separate this axis of evil, three things, you know? And, you know, I mean, in some people, yeah, any things are going to cause nausea, I would think primarily, but, you know, maybe the others, but generally, you know, the list of side effects of the other medicines, Cheryl's medicines had 95 separate side effects. And it took 2 extremely deep breaths and a lot of mental and physical willpower to be able to get all of them out one after the other, you know, to read them, you know. And it was actually pretty impressive when I had to make that point and basically hold the conversation hostage for almost a minute of 95. That's like going one every 2/3 of a second. I wasn't like, you know, soft pedaling either. And you know, that's just not really at the forefront of a lot of stuff. But I tell you, also living in New Jersey, we are the state where everybody wants their slice, you know, and they don't care how they get it. You know, New Jersey's like built on, it's kind of ingrained in people from New Jersey, you know, and so seeing it play out like that with cannabis on the national stage, everybody looking like, well, if this is going, I want to get in on it, you know. And here in New Jersey, John O'Brien, who was one of the original, the head of the what became the Cannabis Regulatory Commission, I guess, you know, and he was that guy. And then when he left that position, he went on to be on the board of whatever, of a company looking for a cannabis license in New York somewhere. I mean, he rode that into a job for himself where, and, you know, actually, though, I did get to talk to him because the one thing Governor Christie did for me was to have John O'Brien call me. And first I thought it was Lefty for almost 30 seconds, you know, because, you know, the call was waiting almost right after getting home. And, but he did explain how his job is to follow the rule book or to know the rule book. And, you know, so, you know, I kind of felt what he was saying. He was in a no-win situation, but, you know, I will always expect a little more pushback from somebody who knows better. In other words, he had me and two other people, mostly them, call almost 200 hospice entities in New Jersey to talk about, you know, and they would inquire about the possibility of how this might work in that situation. Let's start there. That's what John O'Brien wanted to know. And of course, you know, he found out there's no institutional care possibilities, not at all. Well, not now. There is Ryan's law, and what is it? Sue, three other states: Ryan's law, California, Maryland,
Mississippi.
and Mississippi.
Mhm.
So
Louisiana.
Yeah, but Mississippi sounded familiar before, and I'm thinking, what's going on in Mississippi? I'm aware of something. Ryan's law.
Yeah, that's it. That's what
Okay,
it is.
well, now
And
it adds up.
Louisiana.
Okay. Yeah.
And one of the I believe one of the Carolinas, although they don't have really, you know, anything great about, you know, cannabis. You know what? The other thing though that confuses me, and I guess that's what we're supposed to be confused, right? That's what that guy said to me. But, yeah, but like, okay, so think about this, right? So if this passes through or what have you, like how does it even make sense? Because if they grant this Schedule 3 for FDA approved medical weed, and then recreational is just left out there hanging, right? And somebody has a business now, like, you know, the dispensaries over here by me, you know, they're all both. They're both. They're medical and they're recreational. So what happens then? Are they going to be harassed over selling illicit substances because cannabis will still sit, recreational anyway, will still sit in that Schedule 1?
Well,
category?
you know they're after one of the things that they're after are the patient lists. They're calling on all the dispensaries to have to be registered with the federal government, and one of the things that they're going to be forcing them to do is to share their patient lists.
Okay.
So they will have every patient in the country. They'll have their name, address, all their information. I have a real problem with that.
So
what are they going to do with, what do you think they're going to do with that though?
Yeah.
With that information.
It's not going to be good.
No, I don't like them having it. You know, are they going to be able to tell if somebody just all of a sudden almost never used the dispensary anymore in favor of perhaps a gray market solution that was more economically feasible?
I think their end goal is to shut down all home grows.
I don't know. I don't have a lot of private information to guard because I'm barely a real person as far, you know, I don't have a bank account for a couple decades and things like that. No plastic, everything I have, I own though, which is almost nothing, but nonetheless, it's mine, nothing I see can be taken from me. I don't quote Fish often. Song Bug, I think. Anyway. No, see, now I just bummed myself out. I'm realizing, Mark probably thought I was a real person,
Well, they took virtually everything that I had of any value from me, and I didn't have very much at the time. I was when I got busted in 2016, I had already moved everything I owned into storage because I was living in the Springs, and that's when there was a big push to do away with all concentrates, and they were aiming at people who were doing dabs and stuff like that, without any regard for the fact that that would affect people making cannabis oil for patients. I had 17 people that were, when I got busted, I had 17 people on my list yet to talk to, all terminal. And probably, I'd say well over half of them were children. And basically my list, they all died. Most all of them died. I have patients that have lived. Actually, I just right prior to me being interviewed by Esquire, I was called down to Louisiana. I was down by New Orleans, and it was actually the relatives of the person I had worked with something like 17 years ago. They sought me out because one lady, her dad had stage 4 cancer, and they wanted me to come down and work with them. And you don't often get opportunities like that to get an all expense paid trip to New Orleans, and I got one, and it was nice. I don't get things like that. I've spent a lot. I've been on a lot of couches. I've slept on floors and couches and in my car, and that's kind of my speed.
Yeah,
I got to go down there and actually stay in a mansion, literally.
nice.
And one patient turned into 4 while I was down there. I spent 3 weeks down there.
That's the way it works, though. I mean, there's a whole people find out all of a sudden cancer and it's somewhere, and all of a sudden they got to make it a reality. Now, if they think they're going to go to a dispensary and get RSO, I don't know exactly how that compares to the people who really know how to make it and do it for the right reasons and end up getting it to patients who don't have money. That's got to be going on everywhere, and I got a brother who got cancer, and before waiting until it was stage 4 critical, there was an offer to help that involved no money at all. Very quality, also made from specific plant, where there's a good evening dose and a morning dose that leaves you a little more, everything you want. So, that you, of course, better than anybody here, have been touched by the importance and what it can do to at least extend a life and have quality of life at the end of life situation, or when everything works right, all becomes well, and the cancer doesn't win. And right now in my world, that's family, that's what's going on, and so that's why, especially hearing and appreciate saying what you've been doing.
Well, I didn't get involved in making oil to make oil for patients. That wasn't my intention. I got involved in making oil because people started hounding me. Because I always thought of myself as a teacher, and I wanted to teach people how to make oil. That was my goal. It wasn't so that I could do it, and I never profited by it. I gave away hundreds, thousands of grams of cannabis oil, and my cannabis oil has gone all over the country. I can say that now since I've already been busted, but it has gone literally all over the country. I've worked with people in council, not really necessarily work, but council with people in just about every state in the union, including Hawaii and Alaska. I missed a couple of 3 states up in New England, but the thing about it is that if they followed directions, if they took it the way they were told to take it, and if they had a continuous supply, which that was the biggest problem, because a lot of those states people came from, it was still illegal. So yes, they were able to get my 60 or 70 grams to carry them on and through that, but nothing for a maintenance dose afterwards. And the fact of the matter is, as one gal told me at an event, and she was very sarcastic when she said it. She goes, "Yeah, but you're going to have to take it the rest of your life, right?" And I said, "Yeah, you have to eat the rest of your life too, right?"
Well, 60 grams of oil from a dispensary would cost somewhere around $2,400 in New Jersey at $40 a gram. Some places it's more, a couple, maybe 35, and that's from dispensaries. You can find other sources maybe as low as 20, and that's really where they're not making as much profit, obviously. But then there is a real an underground of donated too, and I mean,
Well,
I guess it would be
I would have people come to me. They would come to my door with lawn and garden bags full of trim. And the one guy in particular, he was an illegal grower. He had a grow there in Colorado. It was an illegal grow. I know that. I went and I visited. I saw it. And he would take his auto trimmers and he would scrape the inside of his auto trimmers out and put it in bags and bring it to me.
nice.
And that was like that was like having bags of keef. It was awesome. I made the best of oil, and that
and lives were changed for the better for people downstream you never met, but they're there.
Oh yeah, it was so disheartening though. And really, most of the oil I made when I was living in Colorado, because understand, I'm very poor. I've been very poor for the last 30 years. Whenever I traveled around the country, I did so on a disability income. I would work for 3 to 6 months doing side jobs, what work I could do to make up the money to pay for my gas. And quite often that didn't pay for hotel stays. That just paid for my gasoline, and when I was in Colorado, I didn't have the money to buy cannabis from a dispensary. I had several dispensaries that would sell their trim to me, and their shake, but they charged me quite a bit for it, So, but we still got to see tumors shrink. I photographed cannabis oil applied topically to melanoma tumors and killing them. It's a fact that this is some miraculous medicine. It can do wonders. Now, the questions like I raised with Sue earlier in a text message, I told her that it's not necessarily the case for everyone, because there's just such a vast number of variables when you're dealing with cannabis. Everything from the type of the cultivars that are grown, to the way that it's grown, to the way that it's cured. All these things are going to play into these factors about quality of medicine. But and then you start breaking it down as far as are the patients taken consistently. Like I had a string of stomach cancer patients, and it just all these questions kept rising in my head about, wait a minute, we need to be studying this, we need to be understanding, because I had like three patients that came to me unrelated. Well, two were related, and the other two weren't. They were from other parts of the country, all with stomach cancer, but all of them were Hispanic. Interesting. I didn't get to delve into their backgrounds to learn more about it. I knew that in a couple of them, there was considerable alcohol abuse in the earlier part of their lives. There's a lot of questions raised, But then one of the patients, he was doing so fabulously well. He was doing chemo also, but I told him, I said you need. He started before the chemo on the cannabis oil, and he was doing suppositories, and I told him, I said, you need to consistently do it, and you need to consistently be working up your dose as the chemotherapy increased. Well, he didn't get back to me. I tried contacting him. He didn't get back to me. 6 months went by, and then I get a panic call. All of a sudden, he's in terrible pain. He's having all these issues and problems. And I find out he never increased his dose, and it's just like, oh,
Never increased the dose. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
And there's no excuse for it either, because with the suppositories, there's no euphoria, or very, very minor euphoria with suppositories. So, I mean, I've actually had patients ramping up to
Johnny,
a full gram of oil a day in literally less than a month doing
me.
suppositories.
Yeah.
It's just insanity. That's what really drives me crazy. It absolutely does.
Well, it seems eventually, I mean, probably not in my lifetime, but eventually this, I would think, would all be studied out. I mean, maybe artificial intelligence would be good for doing something, because there's a lot of correlating to go on, and all what you're talking about, I can only imagine. I mean, all the potential variables, but it can be more targeted for sure
Absolutely.
And so it's not like it's ever going to be a sure thing, but it just seems like the ceiling on this, we're nowhere near it. I mean, we're just nowhere near it,
We're in the midst of a situation here where non-medical people are actually able to do things that doctors can't. And that's very frustrating. I mean, I've talked with doctors for a long time. Shoot, when we were in Colorado, when Regina and I were together, we were actually working with teaching doctors, kind of almost seemed like an offshoot of Patients Out of Time in some ways. But we got to actually talk to people about cannabis as to physicians and nurses about cannabis as medicine, and truly as a bona fide treatment. I mean, over the last 5 years, last 5 years I was in Colorado. In my time since I've been back here in Missouri, I've been seeing almost exclusively stage 4 cancer patients. It's after basically conventional medicine had given up on them, they would come to me, and it was like, what am I supposed to do? I've had parents come to me with their children, with their babies, and they say, can you give me a week? Can you give me another 2 weeks? And in some cases I was able to do that, but geez,
wow.
It's so heartbreaking. The story behind my bus, I was living in Lakewood, Colorado, and I had gone up there because of them making the production of cannabis illegal in Colorado Springs. I had nowhere else to go, and I had this gal in Lakewood. She said, well, you can come up and rent a room for me up here in Lakewood, which is close to Denver, and you can keep making your cannabis oil. And then, oh, by the way, her son had cerebral palsy and dystonia, and he was already on CBD, but the CBD wasn't working very well with his dystonia, and the dystonia was life-threatening. Jack, the boy, he was in a power wheelchair. He was nonverbal. He could only communicate through a computer. He had 24-hour RN nursing care. Okay, and when I moved in with him, the very first dose that Jack got. Understand, Jack, his body was terribly twisted from the dystonia. His one arm was twisted back behind his back in a way that I could never show you, because his arm was literally down to here. First, it was the first dose of cannabis oil that we gave him on his tongue, because he couldn't actually take medicine, take anything really orally. I put it on his tongue, so he got sublingual benefit from it. But I was standing in the kitchen, and he was out in the living room, and his mom and I watched as it was about 30 minutes after he got that, 20 minutes after he took that dose, his arm unwound real gradually, real slow. We watched it, and I was floored. I couldn't speak, and his arm came all the way around and came down and rested on the armrest.
Whoa.
And the boy relaxed, and I was like, oh my God.
Man.
And Jack was pretty famous. Jack is the Jack of Jack's Law there in Colorado. His mom, his mom was just incredible. She's just awesome gal. She went to bat for him and got this law passed so that children like Jack would be able to legal medical cannabis patients could get their cannabis while in school. Jack had oxygen bottles, had RN, had all this different stuff, had to accompany him everywhere he went. And for him to go to school and then have to leave school to get a dose meant he missed the rest of school. But if he could get his dose while in school, he could stay in school. And I got to see him go back to school, which was incredible experience.
Yeah.
So Jack, what happened with Jack was I was working there. I was doing my thing and doing everything, and I was pretty stressed because I wasn't getting much sleep, and I have physical issues of my own that I deal with on my own. Well, I had my girlfriend at the time came in from Kansas where she was at. She came in, and we went away and got a cabin up in the hills for a couple of days, and it was incredible. But upon my return back, I saw Jack. I saw him at the door as I was walking in. I noticed he wasn't right. Something was terribly wrong with Jack. And I asked the nurse, I said, "What's going on? Jack doesn't look right." And he said, "Well, they changed his medicine while you were away." What? His prescription medications. Mm-hmm. And he was on some very, very lethal medications. And it really troubled me a lot. And I talked to his mom about it. Well, the next day, a man flew in from England for me to show him how to make cannabis oil. And we're out on the back deck, out in the back of the house. I was renting a room down in the basement. That's where I stayed. Anyway, I'm on the back porch showing this guy how to make cannabis oil when I'm looking through these sliding glass doors and I see firemen entering the home. And I go, "Oh my God, what's going on?" And the guy with me goes, "What's happening?" Because he's terrified. I mean, he came from England. He's thinking that, "Oh my God, last thing I want to do is get arrested here in the States." And I said, "You just stay right here." And I opened the door, and the nurse met me halfway across the kitchen. I said, "What's happening?" Because I knew something had to be going on with Jack. He goes, just very matter of factly, he goes, "Jack's dead."
Oh.
Just like that. I understand Jack was like a grandson to me. I don't really know exactly what happened at that point because everything is like a cloud to me. I must have been in shock, but I must have followed the paramedics down the hall, down to Jack's house, Jack's room, because Jack was in an elevated bed, almost kind of like a cross between a medical bed and a
Tempur-Pedic.
But Jack was laying crossways across the bed, and Jack's eyes were glazed over. And that's the image that's stuck in my mind. And,
how old was he?
I'm sorry?
How old was he?
Thinking he was 15 or 16 at that point.
He's young, yeah.
And when I didn't know until the discovery came back on my case. Now understand that right after this happened, the house filled up with cops. What I didn't know was the word was put out across the state that Jack from Jack's Law was dead, period. The house filled up with cops. First it was people in uniforms, then it was plainclothesmen. I mean, it was full of cops. Uh-huh. And Jack's mom had given permission to the police to be able to search Jack's room to see the medications because she knew full well that it was because of the medications he was being given, prescription medications he was being given, and she wanted the evidence of that. Well, the cops didn't care. They searched the whole house without a warrant. And when they were doing that, I called his mom because his mom had stepped away at the time. And I said, "They're searching the whole house." And right away, she called the cops and told them, said, "Hey, I didn't give you permission to search the whole house." Well, at that point, the cops made us all leave the house, made us all stand out in the yard until 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. And this happened, all transpired around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I was standing out there with Jack's younger brother. We're standing out in the yard without even so much as a coat while they are in our house searching the house without a warrant. Well, I didn't know until the discovery came back in my case because basically what they did was they walked around the nurse. When the paramedics came in, they said that this is in my discovery from my case. The paramedics said they came in, the nurse was doing CPR on Jack.
Mm.
And they said, and the nurse raised his head and said, I just had a pulse, and went back to doing CPR. The paramedics said when they took over CPR on Jack, they said it was quite obvious he'd already been dead for over 3 hours. Now,
Really?
all this was in the discovery from my case, and the cops walked right around walked right around the nurse, never charged him. The nurse had already wiped his cell phone, and the cops didn't care. They went after me, and they went straight to my room, and they ransacked my room. They took one of my green oil machines, the one that was broken, fortunately. They spilt oil all over the place, made a mess, and they threw my stuff on the floor. Took the laptop that I'm on right now. It was brand new at the time. It had been donated to me. It was brand new by Urban Dargan in North Carolina. Had ordered it for me, brand new. The cops took it and threw it into the corner.
Wow.
Messed it up, screwed it all up, and yeah, they went after me big time. The DA there the DA said that he was going to make an example out of me, and the reason is because he didn't believe in any cannabis and thought all cannabis patients were just drug addicts. Mm-hmm. I tried to get an audience with the DA and the prosecutor. They refused. They wouldn't talk to me. They wouldn't even talk to me.
Wow.
I was very fortunate that I had a very well-known attorney. He's actually an attorney that was involved in the recreational bill for the state of Colorado. He took me on as a stray dog case. If he hadn't, I would be in prison right now. Mm. I had at least three felonies that had mandatory minimums. If I would have followed through, my attorney told me that chances were that I would have won in a jury trial. But if just one of those felonies would have been gone through, I would have spent the rest of my life in prison. So,
unbelievable.
They were after what money they could get. I had $7,000 in my safe from the settlement from the lead company that made me sick originally, and it was my money in my safe to get me back home, get me back to Missouri if I had to come back home.
They took that?
Oh, they took my whole safe. They took my whole safe. I pleaded with them. I said, please don't rip the door off. Here's the combination. I gave them the combination for the safe. I said, I have my mom, who's been passed since 2000. She had a little bit of jewelry. That jewelry was in there. And I had the $7,000 from that. I had antique photographs dating back into the 1800s in there. I didn't want damage. They said no. They used the jaws of life on my safe. Oh, I said, I want my attorney to be present when you open that safe. They said, no, we're going to take it to an undisclosed location. They said this, we're going to take it to an undisclosed location to open it.
Wow.
When I took and sought, they took my money by civil forfeiture. And when I sought to fight the civil forfeiture, that's when they went after me both feet. The arresting officer apologized to me no less than 4 times. He said, I feel like I'm arresting my dad. This is just wrong. You know, even while they're fingerprinting me, he's apologizing. I hate having to do this. Yeah, but you're still doing it.
Wow.
Facts.
But, insanity.
Do they still have that? Do they still have civil forfeiture?
Oh, yeah. It's a major moneymaker for law enforcement, because law enforcement can keep 80% of anything they take. They only have to give the federal government 20%. You know, they, at the time, I can't remember what the figure was at the time, that across the country, they were making somewhere in the neighborhood of $12 billion a year through civil forfeiture, some outrageous amount. I quoted it. I'm probably off on that, but
they also get a fair share of events where a case is found to have not been adjudicated properly or something, and it's like, we can't return what we took from you because we already sold it. You know, mm-hmm. I mean, and there had to be laws had to be revised or started to be enforced. I forget if it was more nationally or certainly was going on in New Jersey. And, you know, that just really really hits hard when you realize the level of the tilt of that playing field. You know, it's hard to believe, you know, and therefore it's hard to convince people it's that severe. I mean, they hear stuff like we're hearing right now, it drives it home pretty aptly, you know, and there's just a lot of stories like that, but I don't think people understand generally how damaging it is to so many people in so many ways, and you know, for money, you know, where's my slice of the pie? How can we get that? You know,
at the time, in every night on the evening news, practically there was a story about a child whose life was saved through cannabis oil. I mean, a wonderful story. And in the same broadcast, there'd be a story about a caregiver getting busted, and videos showing cops hauling the plants out and throwing them in the dirt, and big smiles on their face the whole time.
yeah.
You know, it was just absolute insanity.
Sad.
Major crackdown on caregivers that followed right behind with mine.
That's crazy. You know, it's like the when the Wham women for help me out with that, Valerie and Joe Corral, their 250 person facility for people end of life situations to have their own little marijuana garden, and they could stay there and everything, and you had to be terminal to be there, and they were always full up. Somebody had to die before something, and then one day it was just raided and torn apart. And the pictures are not heartbreaking, but the situation of the fact that the federal government came in and did that without allowing the local authorities, because they knew the local authorities would warn them. And they went up, and then when word got out, there was this big, long metal gate, you know, just a chest-high gate that you would close off with a 2-lane dirt road into mountainous area, which is the only way in and out. And it was then locked behind them, and a crowd had gathered, and they couldn't get out. So when they'd done their dirty deed and were exiting with what they had and what they were doing, they had to then call the local authorities and tell them they needed to take care of that. You know, so the same people they didn't call to let them know, they had to, and of course it was their duty to come and do that, but that really stuck with me. There's always that couple of stories you have, and you told me another one, at least one tonight, that really affect the way I feel about that, and it makes it more personal. And you know, that's the way it has to be for me to get things done sometimes, though, you know.
It's a lot. I got lots of stories. The journey finished in San Francisco. We ended up in San Francisco, but on the way, right before that, we stayed at Eddie Lepp's place. For 3 days. And I got to interviewed Eddie and his wife on camera, and a few patients as well. And Eddie took me in his compound.
What a compound, huh? Holy crap. Yeah.
He took me back on the back deck, and he was pointing. He goes, "Yeah, Mike, I was growing the cannabis over there and over there and over there." He was pointing to the acres that he had growing the cannabis.
Right out in the open growing it.
Right. When the feds came in to bust him, they came in with big stake trucks, and they loaded the cannabis up in the stake trucks where it was practically overflowing. They said as the stake trucks were driving down the road, cannabis was flying off out into the street. Cars were whizzing off to the side, and people were running out and grabbing the cannabis and throwing it in the car and taking off. So the federal government
going down the road for more, you know.
Yeah, the federal government could have been busted for distribution, you know.
Oh.
But Eddie, that was Eddie's first big bust, you know. Then this second bust is the one where they took everything he had, and he ended up doing 10 years.
Yeah. And he was like a really righteous man, you know. I mean, you know.
He was a wild one, man. He was a wild one. Back in the day, they broke him though. They put him in federal prison. They took everything he owned. Yeah, they broke him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a sad situation. He's had to, his wife was already in stage 4 lung cancer when I interviewed her. Such an awesome woman, man. She was incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, it just makes any victories we have a little sweeter, knowing, it just seems like an endless battle at times. And I myself should not be mistaken for a tireless advocate. I'm pretty freaking tired.
I'm tired too, man.
I mean, I find comfort in like music and things like that, and even in yard work. Yeah, I feel like that's officially old man status, but I do, and it takes me away from what I really need to be doing. So there's this trouble blending two worlds, and I swear, for me, when the home grow bill gets heard, I always ask myself, well, basically, if Cheryl was still alive, what would she do as part of a deathbed promise? And she'd show up, I'd do the best I can without her, But when this bill gets heard in committee, and I ask myself the question I always do, can I have an effect on this, whatever is next, happening a little bit sooner than it would without me? And yeah, with the bill being heard, that's a freaking guarantee. It'll happen sooner with me than without me. And I'm mentally, physically gearing up for what that entails, because it's not going to be forever. But after that, no, when the bill gets heard, then it needs a vote. Then it needs co-sponsors. Then it needs all that. Can I affect that greatly? No. Little tiny bit. It's not a risk-benefit balance anymore for me after it is. That doesn't mean I disappear. I mean, I love this, but I'm right now tasked by myself with not just lining up all my ducks in a row. I got to create some new ducks for the line. I got to touch all the bases, and I got to be ready to have a really good answer for when somebody says, Jim, why the hell did you do that? For when it needs to exponentially raise the bar. I've been arrested 3 times, and all of them, that was the purpose. I was arrested on purpose 3 times. It's win or win, and I think right now I find myself in a position where I'm gonna, if called upon, if last minute logic doesn't prevail, now that we have a new governor that may help. I mean, it's not like as hopeless as it was before. It's just needing a bigger push still than I would have imagined. And anyway, it's fun lining up ducks. It really is. I got to start a new petition. There's only been, to my knowledge, one petition, change.org or moveon.org or anything that has to do with getting a bill allowed to be heard in committee. It's always to get a bill passed, to do all these things about bill. And I did that 1.5 years ago, not to get a lot of signatures, just because that's one of my ducks. I tried everything, and I got to be able to say that. But I keep finding out I haven't tried everything. Like I've been talking about, Johnny, I've looked into it. I'm going to a post office. They don't, you can't call, but I have to say that I went to a post office in our Senate president's district because that's where his constituents go. And I'm looking for help that way, and then make sure his office knows about it. But I need all these ducks in a row. So without being specific, there is at least one option that's highly available. I won't be specific, but I will say that Congressman Frank Pallone could be a reference as to the possibilities when I get to a certain point. And he could say, Yeah, well, he picketed my house at 1175 Ocean Avenue in Long Branch with his wife's memorial wheelchair and a sign that said, "Here lives Congressman Poloni, lied while my wife died," only to have the police remove him at night and then show back up the next morning again, you know. And the thing is, yeah, I got pictures. They're really pretty funny in a way. But the point is, I got a reference. And it's sort of like whatever I'm doing is not going to be against the law. I value the First Amendment. I mean, even it's the First Amendment that say post offices have to allow me in with certain restrictions, and it's up to them in certain ways, where I can hand out information to people. It's the town center. It's what towns are measured by and measuring distances for maps. So therefore, you have the right to redress your grievance in the town center. You know, that's a constitutional right. And it's, yeah, so I'm going to do that, but not to really get anywhere. It's another duck. I tried that, you know, I mean, so I got to have a list of things, my ducks in a row that I tried to no avail. And I got to be able to say I'm like George Carlin listing something, you know, I mean, just like boom, 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 you know, and to the point where I pause and you think it's over, boom, 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 some more. And, you know, these things, if I do it right, you almost can't keep up with them. I mean, just pressing by, you know, a petition to that effect I had. And then I had another one a year later because I'm going to redo it, you know. So, yeah, but after that, you know, and then I think after what I've heard from you tonight, you know, I feel like a punk ass when it comes to having shit to complain about in my life. I really do.
Oh,
No, my journey was a lot more center.
I'm only one little cog in the wheel, man. And you're there too. All of you are.
Oh, I'm glad to be able to then have opportunities like this here. You know, I mean, from the comfort of our homes to get together for a little bit, and you know, we're here to learn, to learn from you. But then I can appreciate that it's a two-way street when we sit down like this. So you know, it makes me feel like we're getting somewhere, and it feels good after a nice get together like this, you know. So I definitely, if you can't tell it, I appreciate your time here, you know.
I can tell a number of patient stories, the patients that I've met and such, but I also, all the heroes, all the freedom fighters I have met all over this country, guys like yourself. I have one guy I knew, he's passed now, in North Carolina, who, he sat on the courthouse steps and smoked a joint as he talked about medical cannabis. And right when he lit it up, the crowd gathered around and would allow the police to come near him until he finished that joint. The moment he finished that joint, they parted and let the cops come in. You know, kind of a deal. But I mean, that guy.
Who was that? Yeah.
Jeez, I'll have to ask Rosen again.
Oh, I was just curious because, you know, you mentioned people like Irv Dorgan or something like that. And I love Irv, you know. I mean, we've crossed paths with a lot of the same people.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it has, you know. So I understand, you know, how
some awesome people.
Irv is Mr. Packelman, you know.
I would spend 3 months at a time in North Carolina, and I would stay at Irvin's place. And we would jump in his Outback and take off around the state, and I did interviews all over the place, different people who use cannabis and who are benefiting in North Carolina of all places, you know.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing the people I met, people who've done far more than anything I had ever done, people who've done some amazing things, you know, and I look up to them all. They're just incredible people.
Yeah, there's I'm awed by especially the people, I guess, that had physical difficulties and still rose above it, you know, and were just so effective. And you know, I go to New York yearly harvest festival Harvest Festival / Freedom Festival by my friend Rob Robinson. Has been putting that on for, it's going to be the 30th year now.
That's
And, I would remind people there when I had speaking time, because I got to actually meet a lot of really cool people there too. The crossing paths with the, backstage ass pass he had. It was an ass pass because his picture of a big ass on it. I don't know. But, you got to meet people. I mean, like Jack Herr slapped my hand for pushing the substance of a pipe in one of his pipes that he invented, and you weren't supposed to do that. And he didn't bitch slap it. But it was just like to have him do that to me when I'm doing it. I was so delighted, It was like.
Did you know that George actually worked for Jack when he was a teenager?
No.
He actually got fired from Jack. Yeah, Jack had a business where he made like go-karts or something. He was building like go-karts or something, and George drove it into the fence, crashed his go-kart, and so Jack fired him. Yeah. When I was at Eddie's place, Jack came out there. I have a little blurb on my YouTube channel of my time when I spent smoking. I smoked Jack Hare with Jack Hare. It was really awesome.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we just sat there. They were rolling blunts back behind us as we were talking together, and just got to sit and visit with Jack Hare. It's just incredible.
Wow.
Like I slept in the bed. In the room where Jack would be, when Jack was in North Carolina, he would stay at Irvin Dargan's place, and that's the room that I would stay in whenever I would go out to North Carolina. I just felt like, ooh, this is cool.
Hey, Jack's passion was so much at times. I think he's going to have a heart attack. He'd be getting like red in the face, talking to and very inspiring.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again,
He had already had a stroke when I met him, and but it still was awesome to sit there and talk to him.
Yeah.
It's just like I couldn't think of enough things to ask him.
Well, back in the day, he and Cheryl got to meet each other, so that was always like pretty. Actually,
you mentioned Cheryl. Cheryl who?
Miller. Yeah, she
was on the cover of our first edition of the Medical Cannabis Journal.
Oh, yeah. Well, she's kind of an enigma, and she was better known for being the one who ate some marijuana in a congressman's office doorway, Congressman Jim Rogan, on March 30th, 1998. Coincidentally, the same day 30 people in his Orange County office were protesting and really letting them have it, only to go home and find out what happened in Washington, D.C. the same day, that it made quite the national news to a degree. It was on page 6 of the USA Today. And what I liked about that whole thing is on the way out of the motel after, the police couldn't get rid of us quick. And it was horrible for them. They didn't know what to do, and I had to pretty much be with her the whole time. And it was funny in a way because the police, Lieutenant Freya, the highest ranking woman in the history of Capitol Police now, was totally enamored with Cheryl. She couldn't believe what was going on, and it was so simple, And when it came time for the arrest, the look on their faces, have you been arrested before? And she, no. Asked me, no. They had to bring in extra people because that's a lot more work to do the initial intake on somebody that has no record at all. And they were kind of floored when they started asking Cheryl questions because they don't know what's going on. And when they said, any children? Yes. How many? 3. My oldest son's in a band. And they looked at each other like, what the hell? She's out for a ride in the park here, it was like she was out. This was a good day for her, and the air conditioning was on. It was March 30th, but it was 89 degrees, and that was it. So anyway, it was yeah, it was fun watching the look on her face that I saw. Pride, one of the deadly sins, right? Yeah, Cheryl felt the pride by being able to help people that would live longer than her.
There you go.
Benefit from this, knowing it was a long road, but to have the woman on the desk that we'd already checked out of this really nice motel that we were put up at, and she goes, "Oh, Mr. Miller, we have extra copies of USA Today here," because I delivered them to all the motel rooms, and would you like them? You're on page 6. And it was just so much fun for her because we got outside and first woman walking by, obviously a business woman, stopped and looked and said, I saw you on television last night. Good for you. Good. And walked on down. And that look of pride, like she began to understand that the level of her disability was inversely proportionate to her ability to advocate. In other words, the weaker she got physically, the stronger she became as an advocate. And he was ready to ride that wave all the way. So that just caused a lot of doors to open, and I could unfairly treat legislators if they got with, we would be able to go anywhere without a sign to anybody's event. And if it was a legislator, a politician, anybody, their handlers would come over to us because, would you like to meet Governor McGreevy? Oh, okay. Would you like to meet John Corzine? Okay. Hey, would you like to meet Bill Bradley? Oh, is he on his beach walk today? Yeah. He was running for president then, and all. And it was just so easy to open doors. And it's why it always is heartening to see people that do that and understand it about their disability. And I've been lately impressed by a man named Steve Way here in New Jersey who does exactly that.
No way.
Yeah, Way, And, and of course, Steve got to go to the Golden Globes with Rami Youssef, who won the Golden Globe for Best Actor in a series, because it was a reality sort of series based on that. And Steve played himself. But he is very active in disability rights, and don't call it anything other than disability in front of Steve. It is a disability. I'm not differently abled. Anyway, so it's good when patients do use their show and tell to open doors for other people. But in the end, seeing it all, it's what people don't see. A lot of things you do, and people that make oil for the right reasons and get it to the people that need it. So seeing both is kind of a privilege.
Well, there's a lot of people out there making oil for people that don't even know they're there. I've met a few. It's frustrating because I was hoping that I would be connected to a network, because there's been times I've had patients who needed oil. They needed it desperately, and I could not provide what they needed. Since my bust, I really can't be out like I was before, because I can't chance going back to prison, and that's something that I know they would really like to do to me.
Yeah, well, that's a cross to bear then, and I'm pretty proud of you for doing that, even though you see that part that deeply frightens me as being part of a helpless situation, being helpless to help somebody I mean, and I felt that with Cheryl because she went out without her medicine a lot way back in the very early 1990s and beyond. And, yeah, it caused her pain when I couldn't provide cannabis butter for her. But it was always, for her knowledge, and maybe there's always somebody else there. And so, especially right after she died, and I was, speaking to people for the next couple of years quite a bit. And I always included, and make no mistake about it, within a mile of here somewhere, someone's crying out in pain, and people that love them have no ability to help them. It's happening. It's real. And knowing that is good enough for me. How dare anybody make them come beg in person for anybody's help?
I have a guy in Denver who we've become really good friends. I got to know him. One of our major sponsors out of Denver was a dispensary called River Rock. And I got to know the owner really well, and he really took a lot of pride in the fact of his different concoctions that he was making and all. And totally fine with me. There's a lot of different roads to get to the same place. And he had found out about this guy. His name was Jack Austin. His name's Jack Quinn. And Jack, really cool guy.
Good
and
name.
Jack had basal cell and some squamous cell too, by the way, Sue. He had a basal cell, and while he was getting medication from, understand, Jack had scars from the very top of his head all the way throughout his whole body, all the way down to his toes. This guy was nothing but scars. He at the time I was getting to know him, he had already lost half an ear. And of course, in my time knowing him, he lost that whole ear. He's lost half another ear. It's just a horrible thing to have to see what the guy went through, and unnecessarily, because while he was getting the medicine from River Rock that he was getting, they stopped the progression of his basal cell and completely stopped it. I mean, the guy was healing. It was an awesome thing. And but then after a while, River Rock was doing ads, videos of him and saying, "Oh, look at what we're doing," kind of a deal about Jack. Well, after 6 months or more went away, Jack wasn't the main attraction anymore for them. So they started tapering off the medicine that they were giving him. And I had a real issue with that whenever I found out about it, even though River Rock was sponsoring our work, and I had a real issue with it. So I took Jack aside. Jack came to my apartment and I did an interview with Jack. And Jack, during the interview, he took his shirt off to show his scars for me. I mean, I was in awe. In dealing with these patients, I was in awe talking to him. And Jack, he was just so brave in what he was doing, and I know that it had to be embarrassing for him, but he sat for that interview with me. And after that got out, River Rock started providing his medicine again. But of course, they dropped us as sponsors, which was a major hit. They were a primary sponsor.
Yeah.
But he wanted to retaliate against me for doing that interview with him, and he did. And then, of course, after another year went by, they tapered off Jack's medicine again, and he was dealing with the basal cell. I tried to provide him oil, and I did for a while, but he was one of that 5 patients that I was working with when I got busted. So I couldn't provide his oil anymore. And Jack couldn't afford what he could get at dispensaries. And by the way, around the time I got busted, none of the dispensaries in Denver, Boulder, Colorado Springs area, I called as many as I could find. Not a one of them was providing cannabis oil. Not a one of them. Not a one. I started taking and having patients use distillate. But distillate is not the same thing as FECO. It is not. They'll say it is not, because it's a more processed product. I had patients who their tumors continued to grow on FECO. Grew slower, but it continued to grow. There was something different about FECO, full extract cannabis oil, the way we made it, the old way, the way the way that they made it back. The first device I used to extract the alcohol was an isomizer, circa 1978. It was advertised in High Times magazine. The guy I followed with terminal melanoma for 3 years, he willed it to me. He goes, "Here, I want you to have this." He goes, "I want you to keep making oil and save lives." That's what he told me. You know, he's the guy I photographed his thigh when his wife would apply the cannabis oil to the melanoma lesions, and it would turn them to melon. It would turn them white. They would turn them white, and then they would just turn to mush. The oncologist that he was seeing would literally pull the lesions out, the tweezers.
Yeah, the visuals of that leave an impression. And I have a friend, burn victim, Mike Kessler. He's in South Carolina and North Carolina, right by the South Carolina border somewhere. And he's burned well over 90% of his body in a motorcycle accident where it was at a traffic circle, but he was knocked off it, and his gas cap had like a hurricane-like symbol gas cap that you don't want, because if something hooks onto it when you're coming off, the gas comes out and he's a Human Torch.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and he was good. I made a thing I just refound again recently. Little PSA is what it would have been, a public service thing, trying to get that somewhere. But he would show his burns, and it's like everything to the back of his hands, but not there, up to here, but not his face, and pretty much everywhere else, except like his motorcycle buddy told him when he gained consciousness through searing pain in an amazing new world. He said, "At least it didn't burn your hammer." And Mike said that gave me the will to live, But anyway, he doesn't tell that in the stories he don't. But he went with actually Kathy and me to the Ocean County Republican headquarters on election day. And we did that about the Republican candidate. I forget, he's a mayor of Medford for maybe a congressional seat. I really forget. It was basically to bitch at Republicans. What I wanted them to do is say to newcomers into their fold in Ocean County, medical marijuana is up to you. We don't have a platform. We don't urge you. We urge you to do what you would do. That's all I was asking of them. I mean, so we went on election day, and Mike sat there, visible burns. He'd done that for John McCain, I think, shortly before that, because he was running for president, and John McCain got to see his burns and stuff. But it was just so powerful, because, and I don't know, I mean, Sue being very familiar with burn units in hospitals, it's a very
it's a horrible thing to
watch. We were a special breed. That's
we were
referred to as the special breed.
I watched a special on that on TV because of Mike, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing, because what he'd spoken of and all that. But it's the visual representation that sticks with people, which is again why I'm pissed off about all the way back to this bill not being heard. Oh, I can circle around from anywhere in a conversation to that. Yeah, it's just that I amused myself so much I forgot what I was talking about.
You were talking about and how you circle back to what your purpose is, because you have a purpose.
Oh, it doesn't matter really. I'm if I think of it, I'll get back in touch with you all. It's the fact that patient. Oh yeah, that patients in New Jersey have been denied their chance to publicly go to Trenton and testify in a committee hearing as to why this bill is important. They get to testify about their own personal situation. And for patients, that is like a whole end of the road validation for them, a feeling of, taking part. And to not have that and not allow that to happen, they're dying without having that chance. We don't have to know who they are or where they are or how they died or what pain they were in. It's happening. And, to know that, it's a blessing and a curse at the same time, to be aware. And I'm kind of a wuss when it comes to stuff like that, I can't even go into an animal shelter for crying out loud the way it makes me feel, much less with people,
I used to be able to kind of turn it off a bit, back before for the interview's sake, but it kind of got really personal, particularly with the babies. I've seen such hideous, terrible things done to babies. In the name of medicine. I had one child, cute little girl. She's just a precious little girl. She's 9 years old, and they removed one of her legs. I remember sitting with the father, and the father said, and this is after the little girl passed, and he told me, he goes, I wish that I would have stood up to the doctors more and not allowed them to do some of the invasive things they did to my little girl. And it's just so sad in so many ways. And I think how many children could we save? Could we have saved? I mean, maybe not all that many, maybe not, but how many could we possibly have saved if we would have had cannabis oil available? Shoot, right now, one of my big things is talking about juicing cannabis, juicing raw cannabis, which I think in many ways could possibly be every bit as valuable to us as cannabis oil in treating illnesses. If I would have had, I knew how to make cannabis oil when I was working with those patients with stomach cancer. And I thought, but I couldn't make it because I didn't have fresh leaf to make it. It just wasn't available to me. I had dried leaf, trim and stuff that I could get, but I didn't have raw cannabis available to me to make it like I do right now. Me and Regina Nelson, we helped start a dispensary in Peoria, Illinois.
Jeez. And
while I was there, I had big time issues with my stomach through the years and all. I had an ulcer issue that I dealt with for a long time. Well, while we were out there, my stomach was acting up really bad. I was really sick. It was this close to having to go to the emergency room. I was in a bad way. And Regina and I jumped in the car. We went out and we drove for miles and miles, scoping out farmers' fields, fence rows, looking for feral hemp. And finally, we found enough. I was able to pull up like about 4 or 5 plants. We packed it back to our apartment that we had in Peoria, and I juiced it, and I healed my stomach in 8 hours.
Whoa, that's a good story right there in and of itself.
Talk about something so incredibly simple.
And available. You went out and find it, feral hemp, and it, it's like one of those things on Survivor where, oh no, well here, I can make this and it'll help you. And there it is.
I didn't talk a whole lot about it. I didn't want people out doing that because, cannabis is a bioaccumulator. So it's sucking up all the pesticides and fertilizers and nasties that's been sprayed for decades on the farmers' fields. But still, even at that, it still was medicine. I stood in farmers' fields in Nebraska, filming a hemp geneticist as he talked about the history behind hemp and cannabis in this country. Most amazing thing. We had hemp plants 15 feet tall right next to me, and little ones and big ones. There were purple ones, all these different kinds. And the hemp geneticist is going from plant to plant going, oh, look at this one here. Oh, look at this one here. And rubbing, it was in September, and everything was nothing but tops on everything. And he was grinding the tops in his fingers and rubbing it like this and smelling it, like that. And so I was doing it too, and it's just so cool. And he was talking about how stable the different cultivars were, that they had been growing feral for all these decades, and yet they had that distinction between them, all those different types. It was amazing stuff. Yeah.
It's amazing that there's even a kind of pushback on that still, but
It's insanity. Sue, you did you have questions or something? I feel like I've been ignoring you. I'm so sorry.
Don't worry about it. I know how to reach you. So I'll call you and we'll talk.
Any time at all. But did you have some other questions that you wanted to ask me or something? Or?
Yeah, I do. But we can do it on a call.
oh yeah, or you have to come back.
Or you could come back. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have no.
But I'm not going to ask my questions on the screen. So.
That's okay.
No,
I'm having a ball here, guys. You blessing me big time. I feel like I've been in a desert here in Missouri. I rent a room from my son-in-law, so I get to stay with my son-in-law and his and my daughter, which is a kind of a blessing in many ways too. But and it also too, it enables me to be able to cultivate here as well. On my income, I would never be able to cultivate if I was renting a one-bedroom apartment somewhere.
Yeah.
But, that's one of the unfortunate things in Colorado that a lot of people don't realize is that the lease agreements for virtually every apartment complex and home and everything else all have strictly against cultivation, a lot of them strictly against even possession while renting their homes. And this is in Colorado of all places.
Yeah, right. It destroys Colorado's previous reputation.
Yeah, it's not like people think. I try to tell people legal's not legal. It really isn't. It's a very fragile thing because those laws that put people away for many years, they still were on the books. And that was like in my case. I mean, they came in when the cops came in and took my cannabis that, because I told you people would bring me bags of trim and some of it was nasty stuff. I mean, slimy, nasty looking stuff they would bring me. And I would put it out in the compost pile. I had like 3 or 4 pounds of crap like that had been dropped off with me and it was going in the compost pile. Well, the cops weighed it all out with the 5-gallon pickle buckets. Shoot, the tincture that I had created, I had 4 or 5 gallon jugs, glass Everclear jugs that were full of tincture waiting for me to convert it into cannabis oil. They weighed that all out as well. The glass jars along with the tincture against me. And that's the way they pushed up the charges on me.
Oh yeah.
But
that's I'm too obvious. I mean, to do that, there was people that got sentences of like 10 years that they shouldn't have gotten for something like, well, not cannabis, but a paperweight of blotter acid, where it would be such a small amount, but for what it was like 99% not that. And they had carrier weight, I mean, it's never been.
You mentioned the guy from a silver tour down in Florida. I interviewed him at one of the Patients Out of Time conferences.
Oh yeah.
He told a story about that. He served 27 years of his 30-year sentence.
Black tuna, yeah.
But the one thing that like he was like a kingpin. He oversaw a major operation, and they were driving planes over the ocean and pushing the bales out the door, and they're into the water. Well, the one guy who I would have loved to have the opportunity to interview was one of the guys who was on one of the boats. He was Hispanic, and he was one of them that used the hooks and would go out and hook the bales and pull the bales in. they busted him. He had already served well over 30 years, something like 32 years at the time when I heard about him. He would possibly never see the light of day because he was poor and because he was Hispanic.
Yeah.
You know, and he had served so much time in prison that they said they couldn't release him because they didn't have the laws to be able to release him somehow or other. So they were just going to leave
That's
him.
other world logic. What the hell?
You know. So.
Oh, man. Well, this has been amazing. You know, except for the sad stories, except for the fact that also is a driving force. It's an emotion that moves me, and to that effect, at the end of our podcast, Lefty reads, among other things, reads a quick list of, I think it's about 61, maybe if we've added, people who passed during this struggle, whether they were a patient or part of the solution that didn't come to full fruition in their lifetime, you know, and including Roger Barber, who saw to it in New Jersey that cannabis was allowed on school grounds for his daughter.
That's awesome.
Who had happened, I believe, just before Colorado did that, because it was at the time never allowed on school grounds, and the mama had to come and at first had to come and take her off school grounds to have it, but then when that assumed as somebody with in her daughter's condition, that maybe what's going on? Am I going home? I mean, Lefty, what was it that? No, I'm forgetting names here now.
Lefty's not on.
Oh, yeah, there he is. He looks like an award. Yeah, it worked out to eventually where the law finally ended up allowing, instead of the mother coming to the school and being the one to hand her daughter a little tiny cup of drink that, okay, she's gone. But that took an hour, you know, back and forth. And then it finally did get to, I believe, where the school nurse could do that. But just to allow that, a Schedule I substance to be on school grounds was amazing. And but then, you know, that took a lot out of Roger, and he is an amazing person. He is a lawyer, so he got to fight his own battle, but you got to provide for your family while you're doing that as a lawyer as well. And he was on triple overtime a lot, you know, and you know, it just seems like he wore himself out, and then he died, you know. So he's on the list, but he wasn't a patient. But what Lefty would do if he's here is read the list and then hit a little bell like the World Trade Center does every September 11th to separate the names of patients, to keep it real, you know. And then as many names as it are, it's like, for me, I'm trying to absorb and picture each. It's almost hard to do, you know. But then there's always a couple that just slap me in the face. But that's how we do it, you know. It's sort of like Lefty always said, you know, at the end of a podcast, it's our job at the end to make people feel like shit for the right reason, you know, because sometimes that motivates, you know. Me, I'm quite honest, it was fear that motivated me for the early decades of the 90s and through 2003. It was fear. And that was more motivating than anything, I got to tell you what, you know. I mean, you know, I'm kind of a wuss. I recognize fear more easier than any other emotion, I think. So it works. But Lefty, are you still with us?
Lefty has left the building.
I think I was talking too much.
No, this is yeah,
There he is.
He's outside tending his bamboo.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we've had a good night, Lefty. I don't know how much of it you missed, but
I didn't miss a thing. I think this was a great podcast.
yeah. Well, and what's nice is it's sort of like in the end, I feel like we gave a nice, relaxed evening for Mark, who deserves it very
Oh
much.
my God,
Being
you
amongst
really
people,
did.
being amongst people who do understand what you're saying and try not to feel what we know you're feeling. It's birds of a feather thing.
Absolutely. That's the part I like the most, because
Mhm.
the fact is, you can talk to a lot of people outside our groups, and they don't understand. They don't. I mean, I've talked to a lot of families, and just like the families I talked to when I was down in Louisiana, there was different people I talked with, and they listen, you know, but it doesn't touch them like this subject touches each of us, you know.
You
Yeah,
know,
Lefty does this list, and one of the names on the list is was my daughter. She died in 2017, and
I'm
she
sorry.
overdosed,
Oh,
and yeah, it was sad. It was sad, but she wouldn't listen to any of us, and no matter, I guess it's what it was her time. It was her time, and she was going to do it her way, and that's what she did. That's what she did. But
I
anyway,
love.
I have to sign off. Mark, I'm going to call you. Okay.
Sure enough.
Whenever is convenient for you, I'll just shoot you a text and you tell me when it's good to call you. And we can talk about the skin cancer aspect.
Sure.
Okay. Because I
Absolutely.
really want
Anytime at all. Jim.
to, okay. Yeah. I
Anytime at all.
really want to poke you about that. Okay. Because right now I'm getting chopped a lot. I've been using Rick Simpson oil, but that takes time. So anyway,
It's-
but thank you so much. You're a wonderful guest, and you're a
Thank you.
wonderful man, and I really appreciate you. We all do. We all
well,
appreciate you.
Yes.
So
you all just blessed me big time. You really do. I just enjoyed this so much. I
good,
really do.
good.
And
I'm glad you
I
did.
would
And you
I
can
would
come
be
back
happy to
on
come back
anytime you
again.
want. I'll just shift people over.
Okay. Well, you just
Okay.
we will talk. Okay. And when you want me back, I'll.
Okay. All right. We'll talk.
So good talking with you, Jim, and Johnny. I've been just watching you all along.
Johnny enjoys it. Johnny just
It's awesome.
enjoys the show.
And
you
Lefty,
can't get nothing by him, man. You can't.
Lefty, I didn't even get a chance to really talk with you, man. I really would enjoy that.
Next time.
All right. Good night,
Next time.
everybody.
All right.
Right.
Thank you.
We'll
All
talk
right.
soon.
Yeah.
You all take care, guys. I really enjoyed it.
So
Thank
long.
you.
So, Lefty, you gonna read the list, or how's that work out?
Oh, I want to hear.
Yeah, no, yeah, you
Hey, I did chime in about a couple of things.
yeah. Lefty's very active in accessibility issues in New Jersey, disability issues, and he's a guy that. How many ramps have you helped be put where they need to?
I think it's up to 51 now in Bayonne.
Yeah, a step is a wall. A 7-inch step from a curb up into the outside area of a store before you walk in, where the display windows are, that little step there. It's a wall if you have a wheelchair and you're unassisted,
Oh,
And
yeah.
he lets them know and does what it takes to follow up, and he goes a lot farther than that. So, Sativa Cross is a cannabis accessibility and physical accessibility organization, and they go hand in hand. They're
Jim,
real.
we have to buy a ramp. It's a Chinese place in Bayonne. I took El Rampador up Broadway, and I stopped at the Chinese place. I said, "Hey, you got a ramp?" And she's like, "Are you filming me?" I said, "You have a ramp." "Are you filming me?" "You have a ramp." "Are you filming me?" That went back and forth. So finally, they bring out this ramp, and it was maybe a little step like this.
Yeah.
Then I couldn't get in. So I said, just for the effort, we got to buy them a ramp. So we should buy them a ramp with our
They had something. See, that's the first. Usually, it'll go a different way than that,
That was just a plate for the loading dock.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was weird. It wasn't a ramp.
Yeah. Well,
No, that's exactly what it was. It was just to cover a 2-inch gap in between the loading dock and the truck.
And they tried to get me in backwards, forwards. It didn't work.
No, it's just to get pallets up and over,
Maybe a hand truck.
or that.
Oh.
Yeah.
I had a good friend who was in a power wheelchair, and he had MS, and he was one of the first cannabis patients that I did. And times that he would have to go 1 to 2 blocks just to get across the street,
yeah.
because there weren't,
No curb
ramps.
cutouts. Yeah.
stupid, just absolutely stupid. So,
Well, Lefty will be at one event, like a courthouse in Salem County, I believe it was, for Willie Beamer. Somebody whose case was dismissed, but it was for growing, I think, 14 plants. And, we had quite an assembly outside the courthouse. And it was basically a smoking party ready to happen because it's adult legal, so we're kind of stretching the limits, but they didn't want. But anyway, Lefty's like looking and noticing, what was it? There was no curb cut out, just up to one side, not by the main road. And what happened real briefly? Why don't you take it away from here, Lefty?
It was a crosswalk to nowhere if you're in a wheelchair. A crosswalk to a curb. The other side was a curb. So
You got a scooter.
Going back and forth. And then I brought my own ramps and cones. So I set up cones and my own ramps. And the cops didn't like it. But what were they going to do? They said, can't you set that up over there? I said, no, sir. This is the crosswalk. This is where I'm supposed to be safe. So I want to make sure I'm safe in this crosswalk with my ramps and my wheelchair. So I'm going to stay right here. And they couldn't say shit to me. What do you say?
Yeah, Lefty's
it takes that kind of guts to stand up to people.
Purpose. Of course, he did have the.
You got to have
And then the ramps went missing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to have a
Oh,
camera in
really?
their face, though. That's the whole thing. Camera in their face. They know they're on YouTube. Then they're like, oh.
Well, Lefty got made to do a quick on-the-spot psych exam by somebody in the police. And I swear to God, one of the questions was, do you feel like people are following you? They were following him. To ask him, do you feel like people are, there's no good answer to that.
You mean these 6 cops that are following me right now?
Yeah.
But yeah, they are following
It's
me.
crazy, But it is, Lefty's MO is he knows where the edge of the envelope is because he keeps going till he falls off the edge of the envelope, and then he gets
Till he
back
hits the
on and
glue.
deals with it, the metaphor being dragged out like that. But that I kind of did the same thing for a lot of time too. So we're kind of a natural team over the last, especially decade and a half. The At the State House podcast in Trenton going on for 13th year this year. Yeah. Where now it's only once a month. The first 3 years it was every Thursday, 8 months of the year for 3 years, but that's like pretty grueling. And it went to 4th Thursday of every month for the same time. And that's kind of what we do. So yeah, you'd fit right in. I mean, if you were here, you'd fit right in, but
Well, I was going to tell you, me and my group, we were thrown out of a bar in downtown Manhattan for smoking cannabis. They had a garden area, and I was there with, I think there was a doctor, and there was several different people. They were all pretty noteworthy people, and we were smoking out there. I mean, geez, we weren't hurting anybody, And when they said they were calling the police on us, we laughed at them. I mean, it's just like, you've been through enough shit. It's just kind of like, what do you do? What you got to do?
How about
what
it?
you gonna do? Oh no. Well, it's funny because like I never really like stopping at the end of a good time, like on a podcast, but that the list is coming and sometimes I try to slip it by Lefty, like, come on, didn't we suffer enough tonight? Come on, you know how bad the
Never.
reality of some of what Mark was saying. We've already had that push that, but no, he'll read them anyway, and I got to tell you though, I'm really glad. I can't say glad. I'm glad to know about some of the things you talked about that are so absurd. It's impossible to believe, but impossible not to because they're the one telling it. It's like, I don't know, like getting a look behind another door that I didn't know existed to that extent. Just when I think I've been at the edge of a lot of shit, I find out I haven't been anywhere compared to a lot of other situations. I feel like a punk ass with sort of like things I end up bitching about.
Oh, it's amazing hearing other people's stories because there are so many stories around all this. We've been fighting this fight for so long. I feel like a child compared to a lot of the people who I've met, because you meeting people who were having this fight back in the 60s and the 70s and such and all. And, I came into this as a patient. I smoked cannabis in high school and college. Then I quit for 18 years. And then I got sick. And when I got sick, I just happened to happen on a little blurb in a fibromyalgia news group because my illness, I was exposed to heavy metals. The lead industry was big in the town. Like that. And I didn't realize my home was so heavily contaminated with lead, cadmium, and arsenic. But the house was, 100 years old, at the time. And it just was terrible with it. And I didn't realize it. I bought this house from my wife's grandpa, and he was dying of bladder cancer at the time. And I was too stupid to understand what was transpiring because her grandpa's, my wife at the time, her grandma had died of bladder cancer like 8 years prior. And here the grandpa comes down with bladder cancer, which is like astronomical, the chances of two people in the same home coming down with bladder cancer. I should have realized in the course of that time, I exposed not only myself, but my children and my wife to toxic levels of lead, cadmium, and arsenic as well. But I was working 80 plus hours at a time. I was living a totally different life. I was a certified welder working in power plants. I had every certification I could get to weld. And at the same time, I also had a computer consulting business I was running at the same time too, with about 13 business clients. And I also had founded and was running a food pantry and with related services. I did counseling and I had the food pantry I was on the verge of actually creating a food bank. I formed a food pantry association at the time. Well, when I got sick, it all went away. Not only in the course of that, it all went away. The cars, the house, my marriage, my children, it all just kind of fluttered away, kind of a deal. But I did just by this lark, I discovered cannabis. I was having really severe migraines and fibromyalgia pain. And at one point I lost my center vision. And in the days before cell phones, that was scary as hell. And
I heard
cannabis not only took away my migraines, but it was restoring my memory. You don't realize how much you forget unless you have that rare opportunity to actually remember. And I got that opportunity. I had like little explosions in my head and my memories from when I was a child, my memories of seeing my children being born, all those things came flooding back into my mind like Technicolor. Not because of prescription drugs, but because of cannabis. And not only that, it was cheap Mexican weed was doing that for me. That is why I did what I did, because that's what cannabis did for me.
Yeah.
And I realized very quickly, as illegal as it was here in Missouri, that if I didn't do something, that's the life where I was headed back to. Because I think it was in, I don't know, I think it was, I don't remember when it was. Seems like it was around 2012, 2000, no, 2011 or so. I didn't have cannabis. I couldn't get it for about 3 weeks, and I had a grand mal seizure. You know, and I'm telling you, that's a scary ass thing to go through. I'm telling you, you know, I scared the hell out of my girlfriend at the time. She wouldn't even talk to me for 6 months.
Oh no.
But yeah, it's just amazing. It's amazing what cannabis can do, you know, and the patients I've interviewed. At one point, I had over 230 interviews on YouTube of patients and doctors and just about every kind of illness that you can imagine, you know. Lots of cancers, but more than that, not just cancer, MS, Parkinson's disease, so many different things, you know.
People will say, you know, well, you think it cures everything. And, you know, I almost feel like saying, like, yeah, you say that like it's a bad thing, you know, because it becomes harder to explain it. So every time I hear and I know it's something else, it's just hard for people to believe that.
When you understand that our endocannabinoid system, how important our endocannabinoid system is,
That's
it's
the best.
responsible for
Yeah.
basic cell health.
Yeah.
So when it comes to things like eradicating cancer cells and such, you know.
Oh yeah, we've had guests on like David Grinspoon. Really explains that pretty well. Yeah, it's to me, it's with the endocannabinoid system. One person could learn in about 20 minutes, even with artificial intelligence, you know, enough about it that if a conversation starts, you may even be the most well-informed person in the room because so few people know about it, but it's total validation of everything we say. You know,
Kathy Jordan in Florida. You know
yeah.
Kathy? I don't know if you've heard about Kathy. She was.
Yeah, I knew her. Yeah.
You knew Kathy?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, living with Lou Gehrig's disease. I mean, that's just
for as long as
that.
Long as she did, you know.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah, and yeah, and she went on that journey for justice. She was on, you know.
Well, one of our patients on time events, and she steps out of her wheelchair and walked up to the podium to speak. I mean, people just were floored, just blown away. You know, the only person in Colorado who could cultivate, Herb Rosenfeld couldn't cultivate, but Barb Douglas could. Not Barb, I'm saying Barb Douglas. I meant Kathy Jordan. See, other patients are coming to my head.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. You know, well, her story, you know, the little YouTube thing that comes across my feed, I guess, because I watch it now and then. You know, ALS patient lives. It's such a, you know, as told by her veteran husband. You know, it's a whole you need to watch it thing if you never met him. You know, and
Urban Dargan did most of the videos on Kathy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. He actually put together a documentary on her.
He wrote a book too. He wrote a book I read.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty just kind of funny. It's a lot of good backstory stuff. You know, and you know, it wasn't like its literary brilliantness that impressed me. It was just that it was easy to read. You know, it was fun. I mean, because you already know them first, and then you know you read that, things start to make sense. You know, yeah. The original, a lot of originals.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and split, guys. I again appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
I have my service dog has just informed me that I need to let her outside. So I need
yeah, really. Yeah, really. Okay. service dog is like, okay, now, come on, enough. I could
That's-
use that service dog to drag me away from things, you know? I could use
She's
that.
my service dog. Her name's Tigger. And Tigger's been with me all over the country, and she's been on big planes and little planes, and she's been in doctors' offices and dentist office and surgeries and courtrooms and all over the place. So,
Well,
but,
well,
she
there's
keeps me going.
good to see, you know? I mean, I don't know. I'm glad you were able to be here tonight. It seems like everybody enjoyed it, including you. And we like that best when somebody likes hanging with us, because we're not your normal organization and we're not your normal podcast, maybe. But that's a good thing sometimes, you know. It's you know, we all learn a lot in the end too, but it doesn't have to be. It's not. Don't tell me. I heard that you know, and then back to you, you know. It's not that podcast, and you know.
Well, y'all are touching lives by doing this, and that I really appreciate hugely, because people have to hear the stories.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why, I did my interviews with guys like George, is because all these stories that guys, they have, all the things that they've done and places they've gone. You all have stories.
Oh yeah, I need the Esquire. I don't want to interrupt, man, but I need the Esquire link, and I'll forget if I didn't interrupt. You know.
Okay, I'll have to
Yeah.
send it to you.
Let me try something with you. I had the same email address for way back when it wasn't cool to have it necessarily. It's like a license plate, 6 characters, pot 4 ms, the number 4 at yahoo.com. See, if I say it like that, you know, it'd be pot 4 ms at yahoo.com. You know,
Okay,
we mean business.
you kind of cut out a little bit there. Repeat your email address again, and I'll send it to you.
I'm sorry, what?
Repeat your email address again, and I'll
Oh,
type
yeah.
it out here.
Okay, well, then you won't have to remember it. Pot, P-O-T.
POT?
Yeah, P-O-T, number 4, MS.
MS
Yeah, at Yahoo. Yahoo!
at Yahoo. Okay.
Yeah, .com. .com, because we mean business.
Dot.
All right. Yeah,
All right.
I'll right after I finish here. Actually, I need to let her out first, but I'll fire that off to you.
We
Take care.
You all-
have a lot of your time. Thank you for that.
Please share it around if you think you can benefit other people. I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. Till the next time. Appreciate it, guys. I'll talk to
We
you.
got you hooked, man. You're coming back.
Back again. Yes.
Very cool. You all take care.
Thank
Keep
you,
doing
Mark.
what you're doing. Okay.
Thank you, CMMNJ. Thank you, UFCW, Arlo Glass, OprahMachine.com, and SativaCross.org. And our list begins with Cheryl Miller, Sabina, Diane, Gracie, Cindy Mae, Marie, Jack, Joan, Randy, Polly, Bill, Chad, Jeremy, Colette, Nat, Troy, Russ, Roger, Jay, Ella, Hattie, Jackie, Anthony, Jake, Armando, Felicia, Lynn, and Sean, Joyce, Lori, Frank, Brian, Flo, Carl, Thorne, Frank, Lorraine, Terry, Charlotte, Cher, Jaybird, Michael, Marley, Colette, Brendan, Red, Rico, Lou, Becky, Lawanda, Chip, Paul, Lisa, Marcus, Gary, Julia, Wayne, Waxy, Joe Marie, Paul, Jeff.
Wow.
You missed them all.
Really powerful, guys. Really powerful. Take care, y'all.
So long.
Good night, everybody. They shall
Night.
grow
Concludes
old,
our podcast.
grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and the morning, we will
We'll
remember them.
them.
Thank you.